Lammy, then, first of all, reflections on last week, a hard-fought win.
Yeah, obviously a really big game for both clubs, but for us, it was important that we beat one of the top teams of the competition and at home here as well. After the last home performance, a loss to Wakey, which was a little bit embarrassing, but just embarrassing on the performance with that. So, grateful that we got through that, got the 2 points, and we progress.
I mean, third in the Super League table now. I think much has been made this week of your side sort of going under the radar so far this season. Is that sort of how you've seen it?
Not really. I guess it's a difficult comment to comprehend because we've got 8 new faces in the 17 and a few positional changes as well. So that's going to take some time to bond together as a group and to get our best rugby out. Sometimes it takes half a season, sometimes it takes a whole season. So I've just been patient with that process, and we've had a lot of people out as well injury wise. We seem to have a couple of niggly injuries during the start part of the season, which is not ideal because you don't look the Wiggins and Hull KRs over the last 2 years that have no injuries really for the majority of the time. And I think to be a top 2 team or top 4 team, you've got to get through the season without those injuries. But we've had our fair share of them. Tessie New last weekend, no Yamila Hanley, Davey Armstrong's now out for 2 weeks with a strain. There's a couple of other boys that have got niggly problems. So just, I think under the radar is a tough one to sort of cop because it's ongoing, this journey and the development within the group.
I mean, you've just mentioned Davey there. Was it his quad, wasn't it? 2
Yeah.
weeks?
Yeah, he got a cork in there, and there's a slight strain tear in there. So, yeah, it'll be 1 or 2 weeks with that, but probably more so 2. Hopefully, he's back in time for the Challenge Cup.
Any other sort of injuries to report?
No, I know that Yamila Hanley and Tessie New are both back on the field running, so that they should be probably 1 or 2 weeks away as well. So hopefully, all in time for Catalan, and at worst case in the semi-final against Warrington.
I mean, I know you sort of keep banging the drum, but the turnaround from this time last year to how you sit now has been quite remarkable, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think last year we got it wrong in the off season. We lost our S&C coach, and we got a lot of soft tissue injuries, and therefore, we missed a lot of our senior players. Missed the first quarter of the season, or half of the season. I think we were 1 out of 9, but it's a little bit different this time around. But what we've got to do is just keep working hard on getting that consistency. Ben, it's the hardest part about rugby league is winning and having the same performances every week. So when we get beaten by 30 or 40 points as we've done in the first part, there's been whilst we've played well at times, there's been an inconsistency set there. So we're working really hard on making sure we become that team that's the identity. You get to see that every week, and that we're consistent.
I mean, in terms of consistency, the more experience you've got in your squad, the better. And I guess Joe coming over only enhances that. How's he? First of all, has he arrived? And if he has, how's he settled in?
No, he won't arrive until Friday morning. So it's probably a little bit too late to play him on that Salford game on Saturday. If he's feeling all right, we'll make a late call on it. We'll probably include him in the 21, which needs to be in tomorrow at lunchtime. So I think that would be the smartest thing, is to include him. We do have a couple of niggle injuries at training this week with a few of our forwards, so that's not ideal as well. But so we may have to play Joe in the end. But yeah, his arrival here will be great for the group. Over 200 NRL experiences, played State of Origin, played Test matches. I think Tonga to beat Australia. So he's a big body, and he's one of those players that can hopefully fit straight in with the group. I know him, done the homework on him being a person, so that's important that he fits in, and no doubt he will.
Yeah, what have your conversations with Joe since sort of the deal was announced? What have they been like?
Well, just getting a feel on his arrival times, obviously, but then just finding out, if there's anything historically in the past that he's had injuries, as you do with all players that you bring over. But the majority of the conversation's been about his role here, and the importance of and the timing of his arrival. So he's pretty clear on that. And again, players, as much as he's going to give us some impact on Challenge Cup, it'll take him 6 weeks to 10 weeks before he settles in and plays his best rugby. But luckily he's been playing every week, starting in the NRL, so that should certainly help him.
Just going back to obviously with Davey being out now, how do you see that unfolding over the next couple of weeks? Were you happy with how Bailey slotted into fullback for the second half last Saturday?
Yeah, I think we've played both in the pre-season. We've had Gaz OBrien back there where we know he can play one, and we've had Ben McNamara play half on the right there. So that's an option for us. Or we can push Bailey Hodgson back there, who was impressive in our pre-season as a fullback and getting reps at centre winger and fullback. So Bailey's done a really good job for us, played in just about every game or every game this year so far, and done a really good job. He's the ultimate competitor, so it's exactly who we need in our team. And
on to Sulford then. The question, what have you made of them this season, is a difficult one to answer, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure it's a difficult place to be at coaching and or playing. It's not ideal. It's hard enough to coach at any club where you've got consistency or new players or anything at the best of times, let alone having to worry about the salary cap and who can fit into it and who can't and who's leaving and who's been sold, and it must be hard work. But having said that, when the matches that they've played and the young players that have been, or the players that have been given an opportunity, they've certainly been very lively, and they're playing with a nothing to lose attitude and mentality, and sometimes that's hard to play against, especially if you don't get your game right. But for us, it's just about focusing on ourselves and making sure that, I keep using that word identity, but we need to keep seeing that consistency of who we want to be, and there's no better week than getting this right again against Salford.
I mean, they've used, I think it's 45 players by this point this season now. How do you go about preparing to face them? How do you know who you're going to come up against?
Well, we've just discussed as a club that we can't control what happens at the RFL end or Salford's end. All we can control is what we're about. So the week's been about us. We've addressed them like they're playing their best players, and if things change from that point on, so be it. But if we get our attitude right and we keep developing and growing with this group and the trajectory that we want and hope for, well, then things will take care of itself on the weekend, regardless of what the noises are outside of the way that we prepare.
Yeah, I mean, just lastly from me then, I guess you can't really have sympathy when you're coming up against them this weekend, but how much sympathy do you have for those involved there?
Look, it's a difficult one for me to answer because you don't want to see anyone going through this as a rugby league player, and being under threat of not being paid would be a difficult situation. So I'm sure everyone, whether you're a player, coach, fan or supporter in the game, feels for everyone involved there. But sometimes we've got to just stay professional in the sense of if I feel too sorry for them, well then I might take that attitude into the game. We've got to be ruthless in our preparation this week. We've got to make sure that we just take care of ourselves and make sure that we're diligent and professional in everything that we do. And if we do that, then we'll get the results we deserve, and then it'll take care of itself.
Here's Lammy. Good luck this weekend.
Thanks, Ben.
Hi, Lammy, you well?
Dave, good. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thanks. Yeah, just a quick one on Edwin, obviously being banned. What's your thoughts on that, and obviously how you're going to replace him?
Yeah, obviously it's probably not a bad week for Edwin to miss. Not happy with two of the charges that he's got, but fair enough. I think not happy in the sense of Edwin probably could have prevented that from happening with some smarter decisions at the time. But having said that, the new system, how it works, that's caught up to him very quickly. So the way that it falls back after this, and then he's still on that cusp of being suspended for the rest of the season, is a difficult one to sort of accept or understand. But I'm sure everyone's in a similar situation at every club, and but for him, he'll miss this week. We'll look at Brad Dwyer, Matty Davis, and Ben McNamara all coming into possible selections for that 9 and the bench spot as a 9.
Cheers, thanks again, Pop.
Thanks, Dave.
Hi, Lemmy. Just a couple from me, if that's all right.
Okay.
You've obviously spoken about having room to spend on the salary cap, but how does Joe's arrival impact that? Are you close to full cap now?
We're full quota cap, but not financially. We're still going pretty good with that scenario. So always looking out. Will, I think the key to recruitment and retention is the ability to make sure that you keep your finger on the pulse with all of that. And it's something that I think we've done really well here with the club. And Derek in a position to spend the money that's available is always helpful, and we understand where we're at. We needed a front row. We've gone out and we've got one. We're always in the market for players to make sure we get better. I'm sure most clubs are, but yeah, certainly still in that position.
Just want to ask about Gaz OBrien. Seems to be one of your key men. Obviously, he's been in the side most weeks. How pleased have you been with him? Has he sort of stepped up after Matt Moylan's departure? Yeah,
I think Matty's done a great job. Sorry, not Matty. Matty's done a great job leaving for Gaz to step into that position. I think Gaz has done a really good job in the sense of coming into that right-hand side and giving us a little bit of direction. He's worked really well. Combinations with Lachlan, he's had several try assists during the year so far. He's been and is a very likeable player and respected by all the group. And he does his job. He doesn't need to be told too many times. He's a very smart player, and I enjoy watching him and Lockie playing together at the moment.
And with that in mind, given his contract situation, how close are you to a decision on that front?
Yeah, on behalf of the club, obviously, Gaz is a player that we'd like to be a part of in the club here moving forward. So we're getting towards the end of that, and Gaz loves it here too. He's got a young family and he's very settled, and like I said, he's a really important part of us, and hopefully he'll be here for next year as well.